Hey everyone, hope everyone's having a good Wednesday today for our What's New webinar. So as always, as I go through this, let me know if there's any questions. Feel free to post in the chat or the Q&A section. But wanted to talk about what we released new here in the last 2 weeks. Just going to do a general overview here real quick, and then we'll start diving into what these look like in the dashboard. So we made a recent update to the workflow rules, allowing you to enable or disable those rules with a simple toggle there. Super useful if you're testing out new rules or temporarily want to disable one. It's pretty cool. I'll show you that. We added the ability within the order management dashboard to partially cancel order line items. So you can cancel individual line items, or say there's an order for a multiple of a single line item. You can cancel part of that if necessary. We also allowed a super useful feature, I think, being able to copy certain text fields directly from the UI. I know if you guys have ever tried to copy something in the past from the main dashboard, it clicks into the item or whatever you're trying to copy, or you have to hit Command C very quickly to try to get it. We made it very simple with a simple button click to copy those fields now. We also had the ability to acknowledge POs in bulk. So pretty specific use case here. If you're kind of managing acknowledgements manually, it's a bulk way to handle that. If your supplier doesn't or your source doesn't handle acknowledgements automatically, or using it for a certain workflow, we do have the ability now to do that in bulk instead of going one by one on each order. Another really cool feature for our folks using EDI for any of their integrations, we've now added a UI for viewing those files. Super useful for remedying any questions or looking into any support issues there. We have a record of all the files for each of those transactions. And then for our API folks, we have added 2 new endpoints, a get list shipments and get list source invoices. Just added another functionality there for making your workflows a bit easier. Allows you to pull the shipments or the invoices that have been added to that source with a ascending date pattern. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. So let's dive into the dashboard. Give me 1 second to pull that up. All right, should have my account pulled up right here. Before we dive into some of these new things, I do want to point out here under our Contact Us, there's this What's New button. This will go over any of our recent changes that have been released. It gives you the date. So I'm going to be going over these items here from the past 2 weeks. And you can see previous changes as well as you scroll down here, which I've covered in previous meetings. But just a simple place, once this gets released, you can take a look here as well and get a rundown of any of the recent changes or new releases that we've made. So taking a look at our workflow rules. So basically these toggles are anywhere you can apply a workflow rule. Mainly we see those in our pricing and quantity workflows here. But you can see this enabled, disabled column here on the left. You can toggle this on. Very useful, and maybe you've set up a bunch of rules and you're not sure how they're interacting, or when you go to the test workflow rule, something doesn't seem right. So you have the ability without actually updating the workflow. So say I want to turn off my brand pricing and see if that's what's possibly causing an issue on my workflow here. You can come to the test workflow, and that removes, you can see brand is removed from here as a test input field, which means it's not going to take that rule into effect, which is pretty cool. You can also, maybe you want to offer certain discounted pricing at a time. You can just simply toggle that on and off. But if you do make a change here on enabling or disabling it and you want it to persist, you do want to update the workflow and potentially run a resync here. So that way it does sync out the new pricing rules with that new rule enabled or disabled. So all that takes effect. But again, you can toggle this off for a quick check in the test workflow without actually having to save that and run a workflow resync. All right. So our next one, we're going to take a look at the cancel order line items workflow, which is also a pretty cool one, I think. So let's take a look at an order here. So a few things about this. we're talking about the actual order here, not for POs. So for this to be fully functional, you can't have a PO generated for these line items, because that means we've already picked a source and have started a fulfillment for that, or a purchase order for that. So before you process or generate a PO for these, you do have the ability to cancel certain line items here. So you can do that here individually at these different gear icons. So say I wanted to remove this item from the order. Maybe the customer emailed and canceled it, didn't want to purchase it any further. Another use case could be, maybe automatically this is one of your products from your warehouse. Maybe you didn't get a quantity sync, or there's an error on a quantity sync that maybe your warehouse didn't update a quantity properly. This is out of stock and you can't fulfill it. You can come in, hit that gear icon, click cancel. You see how many have been ordered, how many have been allocated, if there's other POs generated for a partial fulfillment on these, and it'll show you if you have canceled any. Potentially there's more than one item on this order, or more than a quantity of one of this item ordered, and you can cancel a partial quantity on it. So it's just a single item here. I'm going to go ahead and put in one to cancel. I'll hit next, say, do I want to cancel this? We're going to be canceling this one line item. Let's click confirm. And then now you can see this quantity ordered has been changed to 0, meaning we've canceled that. And if we go to generate a PO for this, this will not be included on that PO generation. You can also do this in more of a bulk fashion on this order, since we have multiple line items. You can come up to the actions button and click cancel line items, and you'll actually see all the line items on the order. And you can cancel ones individually if you'd like to do that. We'll say we'll not cancel this one. And canceling that other line item there. Definitely super useful, so you can modify these now and update them. Also, you can click this little details drop down. You can see also here under the allocation details, how many out of the requested amount have been canceled. You can drop down all of these and see that expanded information there. Awesome. So let's jump into our next feature here, which is the copy text fields. Super, super useful. So if you remember before, you were trying to drag your cursor over this, and then if you let go, it brought you into this product page, and you're like, oh, I might as well just copy it from here. Now, without having to do that, there's this little pop-up. If you hover over to the right of any of these fields, you can copy that text, and it'll paste right in when you click that. We have that here for titles, SKUs. You copy the title, UPC. So really any text field along with the UPC field, you'll be able to copy here. And this is true through source inventory, product catalog, and channel listings. So it's definitely a good quality of life feature to have. Makes things a bit easier when you're trying to search for certain SKUs and go back and forth. I know personally it's always frustrating trying to beat when you release it, trying to hit Command C to copy that before it went into the product. This is definitely a good quality of life to add, make things a bit easier for everyone. So our next feature coming up here is acknowledge POs in bulk. So if we go back to our orders page and we go to our PO screen here, we can actually select these, and we have an actions acknowledge here. So we can actually acknowledge these in bulk. So if you click on there, I kind of did this on purpose. I selected some POs that aren't eligible to acknowledge, meaning they've already been fulfilled, shipped out, closed. But you can see which ones here are eligible to acknowledge, and then you also see which ones are still eligible to acknowledge these POs. So you can go through, click the acknowledge button. It's going to go through and acknowledge those ones. You'll get a success when that happens on here, which is pretty cool. You can see that happen in real time as it updates those. Kind of a specific use case here, because not everyone uses PO acknowledgements, but working through your onboarding, if it makes sense to use this workflow, or you're using that in kind of a different manner, maybe you do need to have these acknowledgements come in, but your source that you're working with doesn't have an automated way of sending those acknowledgements. A good way to do this in bulk, so that way you're not having to go through each individual order or PO and acknowledging it one by one. All right, and let me pull up our Flex API here. So these two new endpoints we added are get list shipments and get list of the source invoices. So definitely useful if you're having someone write out to our API and coding to our API. Definitely super useful endpoints for reconciliation and just checking a status here. So to get list shipments, you can essentially put in the query, pull this data out so you can see which orders have received their shipments. It's going to be sorted ascending, so oldest first based on the time filter that you put in. You're able to filter the query, page size, created after, all the things you would expect in an API call to get that. We have those in here now. And very similar idea around the get list source invoices. Same filters there in the query by date. It's also going to return them ascending with oldest first. So another way when you're writing to our API to kind of do that reconciliation, see which sources or which orders have already gotten a source invoice, and also which ones have already gotten a shipment for each source. And let me pull up one other screen here for our EDI integration. All right, I have a source here that is integrated via EDI, and you can see all of our transaction documents that you can filter. Excuse me, you can filter on the left-hand column here, and then also you're going to see a list of all of the files that I've transacted for that source here on this main page. So you see this is an 850 document. There's the actual file here. If you click this link, it's going to open that and download it so you can view the raw file. Super useful if you're just trying to get some insight into your EDI transactions. We're going to keep a record of all of them here. You still have our filters. You can filter on document type, file name, if it's been acknowledged, or a certain PO number that's associated with here. You can export this data as well. And we also have our standard date filters if you're looking for a certain time frame on the date as well. So pretty cool feature if you're using our EDI, just giving you more insight into the dashboard and our good quality of life improvement there. So that's all I have on new features this week. I don't know if there's any questions on this. I'll give you all a few minutes to post any questions in the chat or the QA section there. If not, then we'll let you get back to your lunch and get a little bit of time today. All right, looks like we don't have any questions today. Really appreciate y'all joining, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for the next What's New webinar. Y'all have a good one. Thanks.